For I came down from heaven, not to do my will, but the will of the one who sent me. The age-old traditions of papal succession are getting a modern revamp after a team of Catholic journalists and researchers created an online guide like no other. The report features profiles of all 253 cardinals and their stands on issues like women deacons, same-sex unions, and priestly celibacy. Among them is a man known for his charisma, humility, missionary spirit, and deep connection to the faithful, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. For years, Tagle has been a strong papal figure in the Vatican, also titled Asian Francis. With such an impressive portfolio, the big question is, could he be the next pope? What about him has captivated the Catholic world and made him a front-runner in the Vatican? From humble beginnings to the global stage, growing up in the streets of Manila means enjoying a city life alive with noise, color, and vibrancy. Here, from the vibrant streets of Manila, a young boy named Cheto, Luis Antonio Tagle, began a journey that would carry him from the streets of the Philippines to the very gates of the Vatican. Born in 1957, Tagle's upbringing was marked by humility, devotion, and a tight-knit community that thrived on faith. His family, while modest, was deeply religious, shaping his early years with a profound sense of purpose. But how does a boy, raised in a simple home, rise to become one of the Catholic Church's most influential figures? The answer lies in a combination of talent, drive, and a vision greater than himself. As a child, Tagle's magnetic personality and natural leadership were already evident. He excelled academically, winning the admiration of his peers and teachers alike. Despite growing up in an environment where opportunities were limited, Tagle's potential shone through. It wasn't just about grades. His deep sense of empathy and desire to help others set him apart. Whether helping a neighbor or assisting at his local parish, young Cheto was always ready to lend a hand. His strong sense of community and relationships would later define his priesthood. Interestingly, Tagle was not always on the path to the priesthood. Initially, he dreamed of becoming a physician, a dream that seemed to offer a tangible way to serve others. But life, and more specifically the jokes of God, had other plans. In what he often describes as a humorous twist of fate, Tagle was tricked into considering the seminary. Little did he know that decision would set him toward a much grander calling. In the late 1970s, Tagle began his formal education at the prestigious Ateneo de Manila University, where he studied philosophy and theology under the guidance of the Jesuits. He earned his bachelor's degree and later a master's in theology. His time there grounded him in the intellectual traditions of the Church and deepened his passion for service and social justice. The Jesuits, known for their rigorous scholarship and commitment to social change, profoundly impacted Tagle's thinking, shaping his understanding of faith as something intertwined with the struggles of everyday people. But Tagle's journey didn't stop at Ateneo. His thirst for knowledge led him to the United States, where he earned a doctorate in sacred theology in 1991. His dissertation focused on the role of episcopal collegiality in the teachings of Pope Paul VI, marking him as a rising star in ecclesiology. This academic achievement opened doors, leading to his involvement with the Bologna School of Church History, a group of scholars who viewed the Second Vatican Council as a pivotal moment in the Church's history. For the next 15 years, Tagle contributed to the global conversation about the Church's future, sitting on the editorial board of the influential History of Vatican II project. Yet, it was not just his academic achievements that set him apart, but his loyal commitment to the people. In 1982, after his ordination as a priest, Tagle was appointed spiritual director and professor at the local seminary. Even as a young priest, he prioritized relationships over tradition, building trust and guiding others with warmth and humility. This approach earned him the affectionate nickname, the Smiling Priest. His ministry was rooted in a deep desire to serve, to walk with people through life's challenges, their struggles, and to create a space where they felt seen and heard. In 2001, Pope John Paul II appointed Tagle as the Bishop of Imus. However, in 2011, when Pope Benedict XVI named him Archbishop of Manila, Tagle truly began to make his mark. His approach to leadership, compassionate yet firm, focused on the pastoral needs of his flock and resonated globally. Whether in his role as Archbishop, his work with Caritas Internationalis, or his participation in Vatican synods, Tagle's ability to connect with people, his theological depth, and his commitment to social justice made him a standout figure in the Catholic Church. From the streets of Manila to the gates of the Vatican, Tagle's journey is one of faith, vision, and a steadfast commitment to serving others. What began as a desire to help his community grew into a life dedicated to serving the Church and the world. His journey continues to inspire millions, and the question remains, could this humble, smiling priest be the future leader of the Catholic Church? Even after being appointed Archbishop of Manila for Tagle, leadership was never about titles or personal ambition. It was about service. His approach to leadership was simple yet profound, to be a shepherd who leads by example, guiding his flock with compassion, humility, and constant commitment. From the moment he took the reins of Manila's archdiocese, Tagle emphasized the idea that a true leader serves rather than rules. He didn't see his position as a privilege, but as a responsibility to those who look to him for guidance. This mentality made him not just an archbishop, but a shining example for many Filipinos. Tagle's leadership was tested in 2013 when Typhoon Haiyan, one of the most devastating natural disasters in Philippine history, struck the country. The catastrophe left thousands dead, homes destroyed, and communities shattered. But in the midst of the tragedy, Tagle's response was immediate and clear: offer comfort and rally support for those in need. He became a tireless advocate for the survivors, not just as a figurehead, but as a hands-on leader. Tagle visited the affected areas, offering emotional and spiritual support to those who'd lost everything. Through his leadership, the Church played a central role in coordinating relief efforts and bringing aid to the affected communities. His call for compassion and unity transcended borders, inspiring Filipinos and people worldwide to lend a hand. Tagle was showing the world what it truly meant to serve in times of crisis. In 2012, just a year after being appointed Archbishop of Manila, Tagle was named a Cardinal by Pope Benedict XVI, making him one of the youngest in history to hold such a title. This recognition wasn't just a mark of his priestly stature, but a reflection of his growing influence within the Catholic Church. Cardinal Tagle's rapid rise was not based on ambition, but on his authenticity, dedication to the faith, and ability to connect with people, whether in Manila, Rome, or beyond. After becoming Cardinal, Tagle's influence expanded globally. His work in Vatican synods, particularly those focused on social issues such as the family, youth, and evangelization, allowed him to share his vision of a church that is more inclusive, compassionate, and attuned to the needs of the modern world. His participation in these global discussions didn't just make him a voice among many. It made him a voice for those who felt unheard, especially the marginalized and the suffering. His commitment to justice, theological depth, and practical approach to pastoral care set him apart as a leader not only in the Philippines, but on the world stage. In addition to his work at the Vatican, Tagle also assumed leadership of Caritas Internationalis, the Catholic Church's global charity organization. As president, he worked tirelessly to address poverty, inequality, and human rights issues. His leadership at Caritas reflected his deep commitment to social justice, a cause that had always been close to his heart. Whether advocating for the poor or responding to global crises, Tagle's work with Caritas reinforced his belief that the Church's mission is not only spiritual, but deeply social. In just a few years, Cardinal Tagle had risen to prominence in ways few could have predicted. His leadership, marked by humility and a genuine desire to serve, had a lasting impact on the Filipino Church and the global Catholic community. But even as his role expanded globally, his heart and focus remained rooted in the service of others. His journey from the streets of Manila to the gates of the Vatican was just beginning. Tagle's theological vision and progressive approach to the Church not only shaped his leadership, but also the future of the global Catholic community. Representing the Church on the global stage, Tagle has always envisioned a role that extends beyond local boundaries, striving to represent the Catholic Church on the global stage. His role in the Church's global outreach became especially prominent when in 2019, Pope Francis appointed him as prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. This prestigious position placed Tagle at the heart of the Vatican's missionary efforts, overseeing the Church's worldwide outreach. The assignment not only acknowledged his leadership in the Church, but also recognized his long-standing commitment to fostering a more inclusive and compassionate Church. A major element of Tagle's global vision has been his advocacy for enculturation, the integration of local traditions and cultures into the Church's practices. His experiences as a young priest in the Philippines, where he had already engaged with diverse communities, shaped his belief that the Church should respect and celebrate the unique identities of different cultures. This approach wasn't merely theoretical. In his travels and work abroad, Tagle emphasized the value of incorporating indigenous music in African liturgies and traditional art forms in Indian worship. For him, this was not just about enriching the rituals, but about making the faith more accessible and relatable to people in every corner of the world. His global role was also defined by his leadership in humanitarian efforts. As president of Caritas Internationalis from 2015, Tagle's compassion for the poor and marginalized took on a global dimension. One of his most notable initiatives was the Share the Journey campaign, launched to raise awareness about the plight of migrants and refugees. The campaign called on people to walk alongside those forced to leave their homes, urging communities to embrace refugees and stand in solidarity with them. The Share the Journey campaign reflected Tagle's belief that the Church's mission goes beyond preaching the gospel. It extends to actively addressing human suffering and advocating for the rights of the vulnerable. Tagle's call for unity was particularly significant in light of his participation in interfaith dialogue, especially in areas with complex religious landscapes. In the Philippines, where Catholics and Muslims have historically coexisted in tension, Tagle's advocacy for mutual understanding became vital. His stance was clear when he condemned any policies that might create divisions between Christian and Muslim communities. During his tenure as Archbishop of Manila and later as a global leader, Tagle's efforts to bridge divides between Catholics and Muslims were more than just diplomatic, they were personal. His deep relationships with Muslim leaders in Mindanao, where violence erupted in 2017, stood as proof of his belief in peaceful coexistence. During the brutal conflict in Marawi, Tagle highlighted the stories of Muslims and Christians helping each other, refusing to let hatred overshadow the shared humanity of both communities. His message was simple: whoever plans to divide Muslims and Christians will not triumph. These efforts have continued to define Tagle's global influence. In addition to his role in Caritas, his position as prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples further allowed him to address the urgent need for missionary work that respects and integrates the cultural diversity of the Church's global community. His work as a theologian, particularly his contributions to the Bologna School and his participation in Vatican II, gave him the tools to approach faith-sharing with a deep respect for tradition in the contemporary world. Even in moments of crisis, Tagle's voice has been a source of inspiration. During the COVID-19 pandemic, his messages of solidarity and spiritual guidance provided much-needed comfort to Catholics worldwide. His comforting presence during the pandemic reflected the same compassionate leadership that had marked his role during Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, when he helped mobilize support for the survivors. Through all his roles, whether as a cardinal, theologian, or humanitarian leader, Tagle's influence on the global church continues to grow. His ability to speak across cultural and religious boundaries, advocating for peace, human dignity and justice, has made him a respected figure in the Catholic Church and the broader global community. This deep connection with global issues and a vision of inclusion also connects strongly with Pope Francis's direction for the Church. The two share a profound commitment to mercy and social justice, values that are central to the Holy Father's papacy. It's clear that Tagle's role in the Church's future will align closely with this vision, carrying the Pope's torch. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle's journey within the Catholic Church has always been one of deep alignment with the vision of Pope Francis. Both are committed to mercy, care for the poor, and the rejection of clericalism. These values have not only shaped Tagle's ministry, but have also positioned him as one of the key figures who could extend Pope Francis's legacy. A striking example of this alignment came during the 2014 to 2015 Synod of Bishops on the Family. In a contentious debate over issues like divorce, remarriage, and family struggles, Tagle pushed for a language of compassion, advocating for accompaniment, the Church's role in walking alongside those in difficult situations. His call for a compassionate approach was in perfect harmony with Pope Francis's vision of a Church that is pastoral, not judgmental, and deeply attuned to the lives of families in distress. In his leadership roles, Tagle's commitment to the poor and vulnerable extends beyond immediate relief work. It also focuses on long-term solutions. His advocacy for environmental justice, particularly in the Philippines, aligns with Pope Francis's encyclical, which calls for ecological conversion. Tagle has consistently pushed for sustainable agriculture and large-scale reforestation, working to protect the environment for future generations, especially those who bear the brunt of climate change. The 2019 Global Summit on Clerical Sexual Abuse was another considerable moment where Tagle's alignment with Pope Francis was evident. He joined the call for transparency, urging the Church to face its darkest moments honestly and humbly. His advocacy for pastoral care for survivors and a zero-tolerance policy toward abuse echoed Pope Francis's ongoing efforts to reform the Church and ensure that such abuses are never repeated. One of the most prominent ways Tagle has embodied Pope Francis's vision is through his work with young people. On the 2019 World Youth Day in Panama, Tagle received a prophetic manifesto from young activists urging the Church to act urgently to protect the planet and the poorest people. This manifesto echoed Pope Francis's call for youth to be active participants in the mission of the Church, not just its future, but its present. Tagle's involvement with young people, especially in Manila, where he led the baptism of hundreds of children from the city's poorest districts, highlights his commitment to nurturing the next generation of Catholics. His efforts ensure that young people are not only empowered, but also seen as agents of change within the Church. Tagle's alignment with Pope Francis is clear: a Church that is merciful, just, and committed to the poor. His journey, much like that of Pope Francis, reminds the Church that it is not enough to merely preach the gospel. It must live it every day in the service of the world's most defenseless. But the journey ahead is far from certain. With the weight of expectation on his shoulders, will he be able to meet the challenges that await him? Tagle's papacy test as Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle continues to rise in prominence. Many wonder whether he has the strength to face the trials ahead. His gentle demeanor and warm personality have earned him admiration, but can such traits be enough in the high-stakes world of Vatican politics? While his focus on mercy, humility, and inclusion aligns with Pope Francis's vision, some worry that his kindness may be idealistic, lacking the force to tackle the Vatican's deeply ingrained power dynamics. One of the greatest challenges Tagle faces is the need for strong leadership within the Vatican itself. With ongoing reforms in the Curia, the Church's administrative body, Tagle must be more than just a compassionate figure. He must be a decisive force capable of steering the Vatican through its bureaucratic maze, addressing the infighting and corruption that have plagued it for years. His ability to tackle the intricacies of the Curia will likely determine how effective he can be as a global leader. Further, internal divisions within the Church present a significant hurdle. The tension between progressives and ultra-conservatives has widened in recent years. Tagle's role as a unifier will be tested, particularly as he tries to balance the needs of a diverse global Church. How he handles the ongoing debates around issues like marriage, divorce, and women's roles in the Church will be pivotal in shaping his legacy. Externally, Tagle faces the challenge of reinvigorating faith communities in Europe and North America, where membership continues to decline. His approach, marked by a deep connection to the poor and marginalized, could resonate in these regions, but whether his message can compete with secularism and apathy remains to be seen. Tagle's vision may offer the Church a renewed sense of purpose, but it's unclear whether it will be enough to reverse the decline in attendance and engagement. Lastly, the ongoing fight against clerical sexual abuse is perhaps the greatest test of all. Tagle's leadership will be scrutinized as the Church continues to reckon with its past mistakes. Can he push for meaningful reforms and ensure accountability while holding true to his compassionate nature? As Tagle faces these challenges, one thing is clear: his path to the papacy is far from guaranteed. But if he can face these stormy waters with the same grace and wisdom that have marked his journey so far, the future may hold something extraordinary for him in the Church. From the streets of Manila to the hearts of billions at the Vatican, Cardinal Tagle's journey is deeply rooted in mercy, humility, and a relentless missionary spirit. As a potential successor to Pope Francis, he embodies a vision of compassion, inclusion, and bold reform. Can he continue the legacy despite internal divisions, global challenges, and external crises? With courage and mercy, what do you think? Leave a comment and let's pray that God blesses Cardinal Tagle.